Hello there, dear friends, and welcome once again to the Relaxed Fantasy Review. On this channel, we spend our time looking at fantasy of all sorts, from books to movies to video games, and applying the characters within into the tabletop game Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. Today, though, we're going to be looking at a core mechanic of D&D itself. Specifically, we're going to be having a look at the backgrounds that are available to characters in the player's handbook. There are a total of 13 different backgrounds, and while many people tend to skim over these, they actually are really good mechanics to lean into because they offer skill proficiencies, tool proficiencies, languages, and a special feature for every background. And I'm going to be going over them here real quick through the entire player's handbook, all 13 of them. So let's get looking. First of all, there's the Acolyte. This is an individual who grew up in the temples working as an assistant to the clerics and priests. They are given 2 skill proficiencies, Insight and Religion. Religion is a knowledge-based one, which largely gives you information on the greater spiritual world. I give this a 5 out of 10. And Insight is one of the most useful skills in the game. The ability to tell people's intentions, and although it doesn't work as a lie detector, many people use it as a pseudo one. This is a 10 out of 10 skill. Languages, you get 2 extra languages from being an Acolyte. That's a 9 out of 10 thing, allowing you to communicate directly with many creatures outside of your normal region. And then there's Shelter of the Faithful, the special feature. This means that if you find a temple that is associated with your deity, you can get free services such as lodging, healing, or even discounted items. This is pretty handy, although you do have to find a temple of your associated deity. I give this an 8 out of 10. And overall, I give the Acolyte an 8 out of 10. It's a pretty good background to take. Next is the Charlatan. The Charlatan is a person who spends their time conning people and running small scams in order to get by. They get 2 skill proficiencies, Deception and Sleight of Hand. Sleight of Hand's pretty specific. It's either for pickpocketing or picking locks or small dexterous things. It's a 7 out of 10 skill, not bad. They also get Deception, which is a really handy skill in a lot of situations. Most social situations involve some level of deception, so 9 out of 10 there. They also get 2 tool proficiencies. The Disguise Kit and the Forgery Kit. These are great. The Disguise Kit is a 10 out of 10 thing because it gives you the ability to change your appearance with just a little bit of prep time. It's fantastic. Forgery Kit allows you to have proficiency in forging documents. Comes up rarely, but it also gives you the ability to change documents. Any sort of letters or orders from a king or some sort of lord, you can alter them with a Forgery Kit, which can really turn things in your favor. That's an 8 out of 10 tool proficiency. And then finally, the False Identity feature. This means that they have an entire second identity outside of who they really are, which allows them to do things with certain amounts of anonymity and gain trust in many ways. This is a pretty powerful ability, and I give it a 9 out of 10. Overall, I give the Charlatan a 9 out of 10, actually. They're a really good background to have. Then comes the criminal background. This is a person who takes it a step further than the Charlatan and actually does real crimes. Burglary, maybe they worked as a mercenary at one point, or a bandit. 2 skill proficiencies, Deception and Stealth. Deception, like I said, 9 out of 10. And Stealth, one of the most useful skills in the game. Nothing beats being able to sneak around your enemies or get the drop on them, just avoiding conflict or getting advantage in it. This is a 10 out of 10 skill. They also get 2 tool proficiencies, the Gaming Set and the Thieves' Tools. The Gaming Set is decent. It helps you, work with others and kind of do socialization better. I give it a 7 out of 10. But Thieves' Tools, the most useful tool set in the whole game, debatably. Very rarely do you have an adventure which doesn't involve picking locks. 10 out of 10, for sure. And then, their feature, Criminal Contact. This is such a handy feature Because basically, you know contacts in the criminal underworld. You basically know a guy who knows a guy who can get messages to people or who can get you cheaper illegal goods. It's genuinely one of those things that can be helpful in a myriad of ways. And I give it a 9 out of 10 simply because as long as you're in any form of civilization, there's usually criminals that can help you out. Overall, the criminal is a great background. 9 out of 10 overall. Then comes the entertainer, classic for the bards. The entertainer is the one who usually is doing performances, even though they may not be a bard. They're skilled in performing at the taverns and local squares and just making people sing and dance. They get 2 skill proficiencies, acrobatics and performance. Acrobatics is okay. It can really help in specific situations. And performance, although it doesn't really do much in combat, it can be really handy to help you get free lodging or to work in sort of a capacity that allows locals to trust you or to give you benefits. Both of these skills are 7 out of 10. They also get proficiency in the Disguise Kit, 10 out of 10 there, as well as a musical instrument, which, other than performing, has no real benefits. I mean, the only ones who need musical instruments are bards, and they get their proficiencies in those anyway. So I actually give musical instrument a 3 out of 10. It's not really helpful outside of role-playing, and, yeah, 3 out of 10 there. But they do have the feature by popular demand, meaning that even if you're not a bard, you can still use your performance skills, and you're known locally where you come from as a performer, and you can easily use it to gain favor and find lodging. That's a 9 out of 10 special feature. Overall, I give the entertainer a 7 out of 10. Pretty specific in what they do, but it is handy nonetheless. Then comes the folk hero background. 2 skill proficiencies for these guys, animal handling and survival, as they're kind of like small town heroes, like the one adventurer in a town of people who are just commoners, and they're well known for it. Animal handling allows them to handle the local wildlife, which is honestly a bit of an overrated skill. Animal handling just means you're better at getting tame animals to work with you or calming wild animals. It's not that instant animal friendship that a lot of people think it is. I actually give the skill a 4 out of 10. And then the survival skill, which allows you to track things and forage for things in the wild, helping you survive better. Again, not a bad skill, but a little overrated in my opinion, as there are certain backgrounds that make this skill almost obsolete. I give this one a 6 out of 10. Then the tool proficiencies. They're proficient in land vehicles, which means things like carriages and, some sort of horse-drawn stuff. This doesn't really come up very much. I give this a 4 out of 10. But they also get any artisan tool of their choice. And since you can pick the 10 out of 10 artisan tools, I give this a 10 out of 10, because you can literally pick whatever you want, and that means you get all the choices that are 10 out of 10 for artisan tools. And then finally, the feature Rustic Hospitality. This means that you can go to small towns and get support from local villagers, pretty much because you're well known in your region. This doesn't really work in urban areas, or obviously in wastelands, or the Underdark, or places where people don't gather, but anywhere you can find small villages, which is a lot of places in D&D worlds, you can find hospitality, so 9 out of 10. And the folk hero overall, 7 out of 10. Then there's the Guild Artisan. The Guild Artisan gets proficiency in Insight and Persuasion. Insight is obviously a 10 out of 10 skill, like I mentioned earlier, and Persuasion is a really handy one, allowing you in most situations where you can speak the languages of people, to kind of have an advantage at getting your way without conflict. 9 out of 10 for Persuasion. They also have the any artisan's tool of their choice, so 10 out of 10, and any language of their choice, but just one. So a 7 out of 10 for that one, giving them a little bit more flexibility. Then finally, the guild membership feature. Because guild artisans are members of guilds, they have to pay dues to the guild, and if they don't, they fall out of standing. But if they maintain their dues, then they can get things like discounted prices and even occasionally help from guild members at certain projects they need. This can be very useful, especially if you're with a craftsman guild, a mercenary guild, a sailors guild, all sorts of guilds that can really make a difference in the game. That's a 10 out of 10 feature. And the guild artisan, I give 9 out of 10 as an overall. It's great. Then the hermits. This is a one that actually is popular. I'm not really sure why. Hermits keep to themselves and live away from society. They get skill proficiencies of medicine and religion. Medicine is a skill that a lot of people take for some reason, I don't know why. Basically, medicine allows you to treat people non-magically that are dying. It doesn't restore hit points. It just can stabilize people that are unconscious or sick. Things that you really want healing spells for. The fact that you would use medicine means you're out of spells, out of potions. It's a last resort, and it's genuinely one of those things that when you're using it, you're in a bad state anyway. Having this as a proficiency is not something that should come up. I give this a 3 out of 10. And religion, I mentioned earlier, is a 5 out of 10 skill. They also get proficiency in the herbalism kit, which honestly is a bit of a weird one. It allows you to gather herbs and to treat them for certain healing stuff, but it doesn't make things like potions or other actual healing items. It's more for, again, treating diseases and trying to stabilize people. It's a 5 out of 10 tool. They do get one language of their choice, so 7 out of 10 there. And then there's their feature, Discovery. They know a hidden secrets that kind of becomes their plot line. This is kind of a weird one because most adventurers have this. This is not something a background should be providing. This is something that people just kind of have in D&D, and the fact that this hermit gets it, yeah, you can definitely play in that they're a bit more of a mainstay in whatever story you're making, but it's really overrated. I give it a 5 out of 10, and I give the hermit a 5 out of 10. It's honestly, in my opinion, one of the worst mechanically backgrounds you can have. It's great for role-playing, but not for mechanics. Then there's the noble background. Nobles get skill proficiencies in history or persuasion. History's decent. It gives you information about the world at large as far as kingdoms and wars and other things like that, which can be useful in certain situations. I give that a 6 out of 10. And persuasion's 9 out of 10. The gaming set tool is what they get their proficiency in. Not terrible, 7 out of 10. And any one language of their choice, also 7 out of 10. Then they get the position of privilege feature, which means that the common folk will cater to you, and nobles will often recognize and cater to you as well, and you can easily gain audiences with local leaders. It's a decent skill, and honestly, I give it a solid 9 out of 10, which brings the noble up to 8 out of 10. Then is the Outlander. This is actually one of my favorites for one specific reason. The Outlander is a wanderer who, is comfortable in the wilds. A lot of rangers lean this way. Their skills are actually kind of mediocre. Athletics and survival. Athletics gives you extra abilities in strength, running, jumping, and other physical-based activities. It can be handy in a lot of situations, but it's very, specific to strength. It's the only strength-based skill. I give it 6 out of 10. And then survival, as mentioned earlier, 6 out of 10 as well. Then their tool. They only get a musical instrument as their tool, which is not really something an Outlander needs. Other than the role-playing concept of playing something around the campfire, yeah, it doesn't really do much. So 3 out of 10 there. And then they get a language of their choice, which is 7 out of 10. But then there's their feature, their special feature, which is one of the greatest features any background can give, the Wanderer feature. This means that you excel at surviving in the wild, and with no skill check needed, can find food and water, as long as you spend the time to do it, for an entire adventuring party. I think it's 5 people. This is a 10 out of 10 ability and deserves even higher praise than that. This thing basically makes the survival skill kind of unnecessary. If you have a person who has the Wanderer background, survival's kind of a moot point for anybody. So, the Outlander gets a 6 out of 10 because of their lackluster skills and tools, but the Wanderer proficiency is worth it just for that. Then comes the Sage, the studious and library and academy-driven individual. Their skills are Arcana and History. Arcana is one of the best knowledge-based skills, teaching you about magic and magical powers, and History, as already mentioned. Those get an 8 out of 10 and a 6 out of 10, respectively. Then they get 2 languages of their choice. These 2 languages give them a 9 out of 10 for that. And then the Researcher feature. The Researcher feature means that they're good at locating information. They know where information is located if they don't already know it. So they already have half of their knowledge proficiency skills proficient, so they're pretty good at knowing stuff anyway. And if they don't know something, they know what academy, what scholar, what library to check to find it, which is a great ability in the middle of a long adventure. I give that a 9 out of 10, and I give the Sage overall an 8 out of 10. Then there's the Sailor. Not a whole lot to explain there. They're a sailor. They work on boats. Their skills are Athletics and Perception. 6 out of 10 for Athletics, as previously mentioned, and Perception is one of the greatest skills in the game. One of the most popularly used ones to spot things and to detect threats and to look for stuff. This is a 10 out of 10 proficiency. Then there's their tools. The navigation tools are honestly not super powerful because most of the time when you have to navigate somewhere, either you've got a ranger or an outlander who can help you track, or you're on some sort of public vessel like a boat. Unless you own your own boat, you do not need this tool. It's something that really only comes in handy when you are wandering and you don't have anyone else who knows where you're going. You don't have maps, you don't have a guide, nothing like that, and it's genuinely not a used tool. I give it a 2 out of 10. You're also proficient in water vehicles, which is great when you have a boat. That doesn't come up super often. Water combat is not a common thing, and unless you're in the Ghosts of Salt Marsh or somewhere else that's coastal, I give this a 4 out of 10, genuinely. And finally, their feature is the Ship's Passage feature. This allows them to offer their work to a ship's crew to allow them and their party for ship's passage. It can be nice to not have to pay to travel. Most adventurers just pay to travel or have some sort of contact that's giving them travel. But if you don't have that, this can be nice. I still give it a 6 out of 10, and the Sailor overall, I give a 6 out of 10. But then there's the Soldier. A lot of fighters will lean into the Soldier background. They get skills in Athletics and Intimidation. Athletics is 6 out of 10. Intimidation is a really great skill for when you need to get your way through brute force. A lot of folks I know will actually let the Intimidation check, which is normally charisma-based, I've seen a lot of folks use their Strength as the modifier for Intimidation as a kind of house rule. And this can be really, really nice because it, lets you get your way without necessarily being charming. An 8 out of 10 skill. They are proficient in gaming sets, so 7 out of 10, and land vehicles, so 4 out of 10. And then finally, the military rank feature. Depending on your age and how you write your character, you have a military rank, which means that soldiers of a specific faction will show you loyalty. And this loyalty will gander you favor from those military presences. Military presences aren't super common in D&D. When you do find them, you'll have extra help, even potentially extra hands to fight by your side. So when it does come up, it's very helpful. But it just doesn't come up super often. So 7 out of 10 overall, or 7 out of 10 for military rank, and 6 out of 10 for the soldier overall. Finally, the last one, the urchin background, where you grow up on the streets as an orphan or as a poor person who didn't really have much and had to survive that way. They get 2 skills, Sleight of Hand and Stealth, 7 out of 10 and 10 out of 10 for those. They also get the 2 best tool proficiencies in the game, Disguise and Thieves' Tools. 10 out of 10 for both of those. And then their feature is City Secrets. It makes it very easy for them to travel through urban environments, often being able to travel through alleyways or even sewer systems, giving them cover as they move through secret passages and evade capture or be stealthy. An 8 out of 10 power, for sure. Not only useful in urban environments, but a lot of D&D places will take you to urban environments, so handy in a lot of situations. Urchin overall gets a 9 out of 10 for me, so a really good background. Overall, backgrounds are really, really powerful things, and the 13 that are offered in the player's handbook have a wide variety. Basically, leaning into a specific background can flush out a character not just in a role-playing sense, but also in skills, tools, languages, and features that can come in really handy later on in the game, even as a high-level character. Having the right background can make all the difference. So choose wisely, and yeah, these are not to be underestimated. This has been the Relaxed Fantasy Review. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe down below, and keep your eyes open for different backgrounds from other books coming down the line soon. Have a good one, my friends.